Welcome, everyone, to today's special edition of our Lunch and Learn through the Million Mom Movement. I'm so excited about this call. We're going to be talking about soil health, gut health, and aging. And I really am excited about our guests today. We have Miss Rita Flemming, who is so passionate about regenerative health and soil health. And she is going to be speaking today with one of our co-founders and formulators, Dave Sandoval, whose, of course, passion is providing solutions for people and the planet. So I'm excited to get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Rita, and she is going to launch us off, and I'll see you guys at the end.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm really grateful to be here today. And thank you so much, Dave, for being here to share your wisdom and knowledge and passion. And I'm really passionate about this subject. And we're going to be speaking about how soil health impacts inflammation and aging and how it's all related. So this is a really fun educational call, and I'm going to throw it to Dave throughout it so he can put his input in as well. But I want to talk about a few of the reasons or causes for aging, including inflammation from overtoxicity, which causes, DNA and cellular damage. We're going to talk about the loss of our ability to properly detox from our detox pathways, which impacts our cellular health, the loss of biodiversity in our ecosystems and our soil and our internal terrain, including our gut microbiome diversity, which impacts our mitochondrial function, which we'll dive into what that is, leaky gut, how that impacts us, cellular communication and the loss of, and how that impacts our cellular identity, and speaking to some solutions about these. So we need to look at our history in order to understand how we got here as a community, as a population, and what we can do about it. And right now we're currently in a first world epidemic where we're experiencing the highest rates of chronic disease in history. In 1975, 1 in 5,000 children were diagnosed with autism. Today, 1 in 37 children are living with autism. And if we continue at this same rate and trajectory that we're on, 1 in 3 children will be diagnosed with autism by 2035, which would collapse our medical and financial system and be about $17 to $35 trillion in medical expenses. So we want to do everything that we can to support our health and our community. We're also 1 in 8 people today are dealing with attention deficit disorder. And, we currently address that through different speed drugs, which impacts our fight or flight response and impacts our creativity in our brain. 1 in 10 people are experiencing asthma. 1 in 2 adults experience major depression, which is crazy. 1 in 2 people experience cancer, and 1 out of every 1 person experiences dementia. So by age 28, 100% of the population is showing signs of memory loss and decline in our neurological function. So how did we get here, and how did we get to this point? Drop a 1 if you think these statistics are shattering and crazy. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add in there?
Very well stated. And as always, the answers are both complex and simple. And so I'm looking forward to today's dive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Dave. And to continue on this, just to learn a little bit more about our history and where we're at. In 1965, the entire population experienced 4% of chronic disease. And now by the time of 2015, 46% of our children were experiencing chronic disease, and it's only increased since then. So what is happening in our environment, in our lives, that we've seen such a sharp decline in health and also neurological function at increasingly younger ages? And a big part of the conversation comes back to our external environment and our internal terrain. And in the last 40 years, we've lost 50% of the biodiversity on our planet, which is wild. And we've also seen a rise in chronic disease happen at the same rate that we've seen this introduction of glyphosate into our environment. So I want to speak a little bit about glyphosate. What is it? In 1974, glyphosate was patented as an antibiotic. It's the main ingredient in Roundup. It's sprayed on crops to eliminate weeds. It's sprayed on roadsides and in parks. And in 1992, we started using it as a drying agent to harvest wheat so that farmers didn't experience crop loss due to early freezing. And by 1994, we saw a huge boom in gluten sensitivity. So 2 years after we started spraying it on wheat, and also a boom in celiac, which is an autoimmune disease triggered by wheat. So 4.5 billion pounds are sprayed annually. It's a water-soluble toxin, and 70% of the earth and 70% of our bodies are comprised of water. It's contaminating our water pathways, our rain, and our air. And the largest concentration of glyphosate ends up at the base of the Mississippi, which is where all the tributaries and drain off from big agriculture flow into. And this area is known as Cancer Alley, and it's where the highest rates of cancer per capita exist in the country. And when glyphosate was introduced, we were told that it's safer than water, but how does it actually impact our bodies? So glyphosate is an antibiotic, and it kills off the microbiome of the soil, including the microfungi and the microbacteria in the soil that break down all the nutrients for the plants to absorb. And this creates nutrient deficient soil. And that deficiency really stresses our plants and lowers their immune system and exposes them to pests. And glyphosate also blocks the medicinal properties of our food, which are known as the alkaloids. And these alkaloids are our antiparasites, our anti-asthmas, our anti-cancerous properties that support all the different systems of our body. So our plants require healthy soils and healthy fungi and bacteria to create amino acids. And there's 8 to 9 essential amino acids in our body, or essential amino acids that we need for our body to function. And these are the building blocks of life. And they also help us to produce our neurotransmitters. And we don't receive these building blocks when our soils become sterile. So Dave, I want to pass it to you and to share a little bit about your passion around soil health and this subject.
Okay, can you hear me? Well, great job. And, the hardest thing for people to do is to get their heads around, so many deaths and so much suffering. And when we tell people that the human race is in the 3rd generation of a 5-generational erosion of its ability to survive as a species, and they're ignoring the signs all around them. And so it is actually true that the human race is on the precipice of extinction, but not the entire human race. You see, it's the Western human race that has been poisoned by our enemies. Think about it. This is scarier than any Batman movie you've ever seen. Okay. This is worse than anything the Joker could have thought up. Americans have been convinced to poison themselves. Okay. To poison themselves. The farmers have been convinced to not be farmers anymore, but to be purveyors of chemicals. Okay. They've given up their responsibility, and the responsibility is now fully on the individual. I want to tell you straight up, you are not going to survive this plague if you do not do something about it. And you need to do something about it now. You need to run and find the safest space, but the safest space isn't in the mountains. It's not in, the safest space is your kitchen. Okay. Taking absolute command and control of the quality of the food that goes into your body. And I have friends who won't get vaccinated, but they go to McDonald's. And I'd ask them, I said, don't you see the irony there? You're telling me you're not willing to let someone poison you, but yet you're letting someone poison you every time you eat food that's not organic. You eat vaccinated food, okay? Your food's been vaxxed and vaxxed and vaxxed again. So if you're pro or not for vaccinations, it's okay. That's not my point. The point is that people who say that they won't do this, but they do that, that irony in my mind is incredible. People who work out so their muscles look good, but they put food in their bodies that are literally poisoning their brain. And so I want to just be really, really clear so that everybody understands. The food that we eat has poison in it. The food that we're being fed, 75% of the food on grocery shelves, whether it's genetically modified or not. So the GMO signal does nothing to protect you. Okay. So you have to go to a safe haven. You have to be very protective, like a mother bear. And you need to fight hard for the survival and the existence of our species. Okay. I can't make it any more clear than that. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the gut microbiome, you have to remember that minerals, trace minerals, are responsible for every single enzymatic and every chemical reaction that takes place within our body. We are beings of, like, basically, we are conductive. Okay. If lightning strikes us, it will pass right through us if we don't have tennis shoes on, because it'll go right through us to the earth because we're conductive. Okay. And when we fail to conduct, when we fail to move energy from point A to point Z and back to point A 1,000 times a minute, that's the way our body synapses work. That's how fast they work. That's how incredible of a machine we are. When we fail to do that, it's like the traffic lights going out in half the city. Okay. It's like air traffic controllers not being able to do their job. It's like having the police disappear, in the middle of a crowded city. You just don't understand what we're doing to our bodies. So I'm going to put it in one very simple sense, and then I'm going to turn it back to you because you're brilliant. Okay. I'm going to put it in a simple sense. I met Jean Colment when she was 119 years old, and she lived to nearly 123. A woman died in France at 119 years old yesterday. Okay. And the average lifespan of Americans is 76 years old. Tell me what happened to the other 50 years. Where did the other 50 years go? They've been stolen from us. Okay. We have been poisoned, and we've been convinced to poison ourselves. They made it cool. They made it fashionable. They made it cheap. They made it easy. They made it convenient, and they made it fun to poison ourselves. And this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call, because the enemies, the enemies of your children are your enemies. The enemies of your health are your enemies. And the enemies aren't people, they're things. So I don't want you to personalize it and say, I don't like this person. I want you to not like, I want you to have a tremendous hate for food that is not organic, that is not chemical free, that is not pure, and that is not grown in soil free from these man-made poisons. So I have so much that I would like to say, but I'm going to say this and this alone, that I have dedicated my life to finding a way to give people access to the highest quality food on the planet delivered directly to their doorstep. It has been my mission to connect people directly to the source of life, which is pure, organic, unadulterated food that comes directly from Mother Nature to you. And even my packaging is plant-based. Okay. So we're not doing, you know what, to Mother Nature just because we want to be healthy. There's too many compromises. So I want to let you know that it's time to take a stand. It's time to not allow compromises, because I remember being raised a Christian, that I learned that the compromised tree cannot bear uncompromised fruit. Okay, that the compromised tree cannot bear uncompromised fruit. And yet we've been eating from a compromised tree, from a compromised farm for far too long. And why people aren't staunchly defending food to remain as food and not let them put chemicals on it, pesticides and herbicides and all of these things. Why this isn't the number one issue in the world, that our food is poison, is beyond me. So thank you for all that you do, because when we regenerate the soil, we regenerate the food that grows in it, and we regenerate the animals and the people that eat it. And then we can regenerate the hearts, the souls, the minds, and the spirits of people, so they stop this low vibration where we keep accepting the fact that we're being poisoned just because it's less expensive, just because it's more convenient, just because it's cool, or they've made it fun. We have to reject those illusions. We have to reject all of that. It's like we're in the middle of this grand magic show. Okay. And we've got to break the veil. We've got to clear the smoke. We've got to expose this illusion for what it is. So thank you for, for what you do. Thanks for inviting me on the call today. I don't know if you have a question or two for me, but I just wanted to just let you know where I stand on this whole issue and what I think we should do about it.
Yay. Thank you so much, Dave. You inspire me, and I really appreciate all the solutions that you've provided for us as a community, and just access to nutrient dense foods, and your passion for actually regenerating the soil, which to me is life-changing. And all of this comes back to also not only restoring our environment and our ecosystems, which you're supporting and doing, it's restoring that internal terrain, which I'm going to dive more into. But I just wanted to thank you, because I know not only have you been passionate about the farms that you're working with, the farmers, the land that you're working with, so that it has the most nutrient density and is cared for in the best ways, but even the way that you're dehydrating the superfoods to preserve the most biodiversity and living organisms to support our bodies. So if you want to speak anything else on that.
One last thought is, in 1901, there were nearly 600 varieties of apples being grown in America. Today, there are 7 varieties registered with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and 6 of them are not even heirloom. They're not even real apples. There's so much sugar in them that they probably give you diabetes if that was your chosen fruit. I don't mean that seriously. They're still good for you. They're just not anything what they once were. So where did the other 494 varieties of apples go? And where did the diversity of all the nutrients and all the phytochemistry that resided in them go? It's disappeared, you guys. When you look at, I don't mean to talk about product, but when you look at my biofruit, I put nearly 20 of the rarest, most biodiverse fruits, most potent fruits on the planet in one single drink, so that you get biodiversity, mad biodiversity. And yeah, maybe a glass of mango juice or orange juice would taste better. You know what I mean? But would it be better for you? Would it protect your urinary tract and your heart and all your cell membranes? No, it wouldn't. Not in the same way. So thank you for letting me share. Thanks for the way that you care. And I hope that this is going to be, I wish I could stay on and listen to every word you have to say. I've got a group of people waiting for me on my next meeting, but I'm going to look at the replay and I'm going to share it. So thank you so much for all you do.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Love and
Happy
appreciate
birthday,
you.
Night, Ava, wherever you are.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for coming on and just sharing your heart and your passion and your wisdom and these solutions. And I'm going to dive in deeper to just really explore the depth of these solutions and why it's so important. So we were speaking about how glyphosate, it creates sterile soil, it kills off the microorganisms, the biodiversity of the soil, but it also kills off the microorganisms in our body and in our gut microbiome, which stops our nutrient absorption and stops our cellular communication. And a loss of cellular communication is the root cause of degeneration and aging. And today, 1 in 4 women are infertile and 1 in 3 males are infertile. So we're losing our ability to procreate from everything that Dave was talking about. And I just want to explore, why is it so important to have a healthy biodiversity in our bodies and in our environment? So it's in the microorganisms in our gut that are actually responsible for producing 90% of our serotonin and 50% of our dopamine, which are the hormones that impact our mood and our mental health. And we wouldn't have that without these microorganisms. And when we lose that biodiversity in our gut, we lose the ability to produce those hormones. And we see that major depression increases by 44% with 2 doses of antibiotics. And glyphosate is an antibiotic that sterilizes the gut, and that creates that loss of that cellular identity. So mental illness, major depression, anxiety, all of these correlate to glyphosate. And anxiety is also a response to what we're eating. And if we're eating nutrient deficient and stressed out plants, this actually translates into our nervous system. And if we're eating animal products from factories where the animals are separated from their mothers at birth, or they're not experiencing that light of day, or they're forced into smaller confined spaces, they're in a chronic state of fight or flight in these conditions, and they have a heavy parasite load from an unhealthy environment. And this stress and trauma gets passed from these animals to us when we eat them, which is why so many people experience unexplained anxiety a couple of hours after eating. Another impact of glyphosate is it also impacts infectious disease such as Lyme. And that is seen, in that correlation of the glyphosate map with the infectious disease map. And over 70% of our immune function is in our gut health. And within 20 minutes of exposure to glyphosate, we experience a leaky gut, which means all of the toxins from the external world are leaking into our immune system and leaking into our lymphatic system. And this creates an inflammatory response throughout the whole body, which can lead to autoimmune and neurological weakness from toxins crossing that blood-brain barrier. And this leaky gut can also create sensitivity to foods, allergies to our environment, and just one slice of pizza can blow up that gut lining, creating that inflammatory response throughout the whole system and creating that brain fog. And that is from the glyphosate toxicity. So glyphosate turns us into a leaky sieve so that it weakens our gut-brain barrier. It creates leaky blood vessels, creates leaky kidney tubulars, which is our body's ability to detox. So these are all really important things. And when we can't properly detox, we get that systemic inflammatory response, which causes aging. So what can we do about it? Because I know these statistics are pretty alarming and hard, especially when glyphosate is in our environment and in our water, and we're all exposed to it daily. So one thing we can work with is soil mitigation and restoring the biodiversity of our soils and of our ecosystems. And I know Dave is working really hard on doing that with the farmers that he's working with and the farms that he's working with, and also, watering with mineral rich spring water and all of these things, which are important. We can also support organic and regenerative farmers so that we're divesting from these chemical agriculture companies, so that these toxins are no longer pouring into our waterways. We can increase the amount of living foods that we're eating on a daily basis, and living foods that are grown in a biodiverse environment increase the biodiversity in our own internal terrain. And when we increase that biodiversity, we actually improve our cellular communication. And that really supports us and protects us against aging and disease. What I love was what Dave was talking about, was about the biodiversity in the superfoods, and the way that they're grown and the way that they're dried also increases those living organisms and enzymes that we get access to. We can detox glyphosate from our body and restore those tight junctions, and Biomedic is amazing for that. It's the only clinically proven solution that reduces glyphosate by 75% in 6 weeks, and reduces C-reactive protein by 74% in 6 weeks. So it's bringing that inflammatory marker down. So that's huge. And if we can get that glyphosate out, then we can restore that biodiversity of the gut, which is really important. We can support the elimination waste pathways, specifically our kidneys. And one way to do that is your fresh fruits, your grapes, your lemons, your cherries, your berries, the fruits found in biofruit that Dave was talking about, the dark fruits found in dark berry and apothecary, and all of those work to clean up the lymphatic system and reduce the inflammation to open up those kidney pathways. We can also expose ourselves to cold plunges and cold showers and brisk walks in nature, which actually kicks on our longevity genes, and it helps to restore that cellular communication, which allows that repair of damaged DNA, and it turns on those healthy genes. Intermittent fasting is another thing we can do. So we can eat, 20% less, but receive more nutrient dense foods. Or take a pause on our food consumption. And what that does is it allows the body to rest and repair, and stop focusing on that digestion and start focusing on that internal repair of our DNA. And it also turns on those longevity genes. We can activate cellular regeneration by supporting the mitochondria in our cells. And the mitochondria are what produce our cellular energy, or our cellular ATP. And the mitochondria need 2 ingredients to thrive. One is simple sugars from fresh fruits and veggies, and the other is oxygen. And those 2 ingredients create and produce cellular energy. And when we have enough cellular energy, that's when our body goes into regeneration and repair mode. And I really love the Can't Beat This for supporting that cellular ATP production. The next thing we can do is we can exercise to improve that mitochondrial function and improve our circulation. We can also increase the amounts of fruits and herbs and superfoods that we're putting into our body, because these are inputting alkaline minerals into our body. And when we get the body alkaline, it allows for that cellular absorption of nutrients, allows the release of toxins, which helps to strengthen the cells when we get that out. And that's physical toxins and emotional toxins that get released when we increase that alkalinity in our body. We can also work with healthy soils to absorb nutrient-dense foods and absorb those amino acids. Since I was sharing in the beginning of the call that glyphosate blocks that amino acid absorption. So that's a really important one. And our super amino 23 is 99% bioavailable. It takes the burden off of your digestive system. So it allows for that repair and that rebuilding of the system and rebuilding of the nervous system. We also have something that's called microRNA, which allows you to produce 4 million versions of you. So you can create an entirely new body through our microRNA. And we swap microRNA through our environment, through that biodiversity of our ecosystems, through the people that we hang out with, through our pets. And 50% or 15% of that microRNA is in your bloodstream is from bacteria in the air, and 15% is from fungi, and 5% is from the DNA from the food that you consume. So to quote Dr. Zach Bush, the plants in your environment are coding your genes. We are literally what we eat. We are the emotion of what we just ate. And so the entire planet and all of its ecosystems are our gene pool. So get out into nature, get into biodiverse ecosystems, and that's going to repopulate your own internal terrain and your own biodiversity, which is going to turn on that cellular communication, which is going to support your mitochondrial health, your cellular health, and lead to that cellular regeneration. So the way that we support ourselves is by supporting our external environment and our internal environment. So regenerating our ecosystems and our soil, and regenerating that biodiversity inside of us through those nutrient-rich foods. So in conclusion, our bodies are amazing, and it's so important that we protect that biodiversity and that we share this education, because that biodiversity is what rebuilds our body through that microRNA. So to increase your quality of life, to increase your longevity, put some of these things into practice, add more nutrient dense foods, and get outside, get into the sunshine, get into nature, breathe in, healthy ecosystems, dive in with, community that uplifts and supports you. And yay, that's pretty much all I wanted to share and talk about today. But thank you everyone for being here. And Michelle, I'll pass it back to you to close out.
Thanks so much, Rita. Short and sweet, but wow, that was really packed. And I just really want to thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us, and giving us such a concise tool to share with the field. And you're getting a lot of love in the chat. And so just thank you so much. Thank you for bringing Dave on, and thank you for all you do for our community, and for being such a stand for people understanding that they're far more capable of healing than anybody has ever taught them to believe. So you are truly one of my heroes, and I just love you. So thanks, everyone. And with that, we're going to close out, and we hope to see you on our next Million Mom Movement or any of our product and passion calls. Bye for now. Take a couple minutes, Rita, and just check out the messages, and then I'll end the call. Rita, are you open to taking a question or two?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. If anybody would like to